Summer routines live or die by how easy they are, and honestly, if something takes too much effort, I'm out. That's why Groons is my go-to. It's my one daily pack of gummies covering my greens, vitamins, and minerals. Plus, it has 6 grams of prebiotic fiber, which is more than 2 cups of broccoli. No mixing powders, no giant pills, no hassle. I just rip open the pack and I'm done. They taste good and they make it easy to stay on top of my health, even when life gets busy. Save up to 52% with the code PODCAST at Groons.co. That's code PODCAST at GRUNS.co.
Hello, everyone, and welcome again to now what is Rosen Sports Tuesday. First of all, I want to thank our sponsors, Lexus of Whitehead and Maplewood, our friend Charlie Swanson. The Minnesota Twins, a new sponsor. I'm going to go check out a game with my daughter here in early June against her favorite team. Well, no, her favorite team is actually the Cubs, but we're going to go see the White Sox. And Lucy Nicotine Pouches. So I want to thank them as well for their support. I was in Chicago, over the weekend. My wife Karen was there earlier in the week for a sports attorneys conference for 3-4 days, and then I joined her on Saturday and hung out with some friends. Courtney Cronin, who's become a rock star at ESPN, joined us for dinner, and they have a long association. And hearing her stories, of course, when you're young and talented like Courtney, you can stay out late on a Saturday night, have wonderful dinner, and then get up at 6 a.m. as she did to do a 3-hour radio show, which brings us to, I'm going, good luck with that. I'd still be out. Brings us to our guest, Johnny Krawczynski from The Athletic. And as if there's not enough to talk about what's going on in Chicago, we had brunch at Kevin Warren's house on Sunday for his daughter graduated from Notre Dame Law School, and it was quite a gathering of family and friends. And I had a chance to sit down with Kevin and chit-chat a little bit. Some of the stuff was kind of, off the record, as you know, John. And
yeah,
excuse me. But the conversation about what's going on with the Bears Stadium obviously did come up because they're coming down to a deadline. And it's shocking to think about the Bears would never be in Chicago again. But the Illinois legislature has got 2 weeks to go, and that's kind of it. And I don't think any big movement there to financially find a way of keeping the Bears in Chicago, which is stunning because their other options right now are Hammond, Indiana, and then Arlington Heights, which is where the racetrack used to be. I don't know what your thoughts about this are and how the NFL views all this, but it's like, well, sure, if they go to Hammond, Indiana, it's not that far away, but it's not Soldier Field. It's not downtown Chicago. It's as much part of the culture as Wrigley Field and all the years that they've been there.
Yeah, it's really just kind of shocking to even think about the Bears not being downtown Chicago. I mean, I know that for a little while there was a trend around a lot of sports leagues of moving to suburbs to get more real estate and develop out there. But it feels like that trend is kind of reversed over the recent seasons, and more teams are building downtown again. It just like that feels right to me when if it's an NFL game, if it's an NBA game, if the building is right in the heart of the city, you got the energy of the city all around it. And I mean, Chicago Bears, like those two words are synonymous with each other. And so to think about them being outside of Chicago, it's just like, it doesn't even compute really.
Well, and as we well know, everything from when Target Field was built, obviously U.S. Bank, even going back to the Metrodome, for crying out loud, politicians get involved, and you got to play both sides of the aisle, and you got to appease the people who really don't want taxpayers' money going to anything, and the city can't get involved. It's just going to look bad. It's going to cost you an election. So I think politics, number one, is always at the top of the list especially in the city of Chicago, which, as we know, has had some interesting times over the years. This is what it's coming down to, but I agree. It's going to be stunning, I still think, for people in Chicago to think that our team, the Chicago Bears, George Halas' Chicago Bears, are not going to be here anymore. That would be incredible.
It would be. And I mean, if you want to swing it back locally, I do think it kind of has a little bit of a bearing on what Mark Lowry and Alex Rodriguez are trying to do with the Timberwolves. I mean, I do think that there were at least some initial kind of thoughts about, hey, do we look out to Egan? Do you look out to other places? Remember when the Wilfs before US Bank Stadium, they were looking at Arden Hills and a few places. And I think, I know there's no site that has been chosen yet, but I do think the preference from the Wolves people is to keep it downtown if they can. Yep. And I think I know that, you and I are both in the sports industry and the media industry. And so I think, have some biases involved, but I mean, it is clear to me that if you have those kind of venues in your city, like, it does help with the kind of social feeling, the just having people around and like being able to kind of frequent restaurants and things like that. And so I do think it's a lot of times in a city's best interest to do what it can to keep an arena kind of in the downtown area. Obviously you don't want to take a bad deal for it, but yeah, I think I think the Timberwolves will end up downtown Minneapolis again, with a new kind of Target Center type of a deal. But you never know when all these politicians get involved.
Yeah. I think they talked about the City Center site, which is kind of a white elephant right now, and it's just sitting over there. But yeah, that's yet to be determined. Meanwhile, today, as far as newsy stuff goes involving events, U.S. Bank is officially supposed to be, and the Vikings is officially supposed to get the NFL draft in 2018, which is good news. I mean, it's as we know, the NFL is constantly marketing itself over the top, and we've seen what happened in Green Bay and Pittsburgh. I mean, this is a big deal, is it not? I mean, to get the draft.
Yeah, it's enormous. I mean, like, there are hundreds of thousands of people literally that go to this thing and kind of hang out and party and stuff. Hopefully they get some good weather.
That's true. It is in April.
In April in 2028. But it's become such a spectacle and such an event that way. I mean, I feel old now talking about it, but I mean, I just remember when I was a kid just watching on TV, and that's what you did. And it was always in New York. And yeah, you had the teams gather, but it wasn't a commercial enterprise. And now it absolutely is an event. It's a party. It's just everything. And fans get together and by the hundreds of thousands and watch this thing live and outdoors and everything like that. So I'm sure that Minneapolis and the Vikings will put on a heck of a show with it, and people will have a good time. I will be happily sequestered in my, at home watching on the flat screen, or maybe at a Timberwolves game if they're in the playoffs, things like that. But it's going to be an event for sure.
Yeah, I love to, from an historical aging myself process, I could remember being at the Holiday Inn, I think over in Bloomington, when the Vikings drafted Darren Nelson, and there were like 6 of us in the room. There was a telephone there. There was no, live video or anything. And all of a sudden, that's when the infamous Disco Darren came out, and I don't think he really wanted to come to Minnesota. Bud Grant drafted him, and the rest is history, as they say. But that shows you what it was like. There was just like 5-6 reporters hanging out in a little room over at the Holiday Inn. Fans weren't involved at all. There was no internet. There was no way of finding out or following it. There was no ESPN show on the draft. It was, I think, in the afternoon. But man, it's come a long ways. Meanwhile, I got back from Chicago just in time to watch, I think, the championship Game 7 of the NBA last night. It certainly felt like it. How in the hell do you top that 2 overtime? We knew it was going to be a heavyweight battle. You followed these teams, post Timberwolves. We'll talk about that a little bit as well. But San Antonio coming into OKC, and they've played well against them. 122-115, 2 overtimes. The alien himself, Victor Wembanyama, went to soaring to new heights. Is a not even an overstatement. 41 points, 24 rebounds. He makes a 30-foot three-pointer when he's almost running on fumes, literally. I don't even know how, we watch those halftime shows. Sometimes they have somebody from the audience come out and try to make a 3-point shot. And, some 21-year-old kid who can't get the ball to the hoop. You're watching Victor. He just goes down court and what is he doing? Swish. I mean, I don't know what you think, what could happen from here, but what a showcase for the NBA last night.
Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, I can't remember, Rosie, another series before a finals that was more anticipated than this one. I mean, these are two amazing teams that are going at it. And I do think in that game last night, the torch was passed in terms of best player in the league. Like, I think that, we've kind of been waiting and watching Victor Wembanyama and seeing kind of some of the amazing things that he's been doing. He certainly had a wonderful series against the Timberwolves, but last night was his sort of slamming the gavel on the bench and just saying, I'm the man now. And it's not Nikola Jokic anymore. It's not Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Wemby just affects both ends of the court to such a dramatic degree. And he is 22 years old. And so you thought maybe it'd take another couple of years before he was ready. But nah, man, he's ready right now. Like he is the best player out there. And there is a helplessness that kind of surrounds him when you look at just what are you supposed to do when he's hitting 30-foot bombs, when he's offensive rebounding and just dunking over you without barely having to jump, when he's blocking every shot. Like it's incredible what he's doing right now.
There was a moment, it was like a still shot, which I've seen, I'm sure you have as well, where he made one. The game was pretty much over at that point, but he kind of raised his arms. He's standing in front of his Spurs bench, and all his teammates are looking at him. It's like the minions looking at the king of the world, and it was just. I mean, that spoke volumes of that particular shot because his height and all his teammates just big grins on their face, staring at Wemby, going, "Thank you, leader. Thank you, taking us to the promised land, at least for one game, and it is only one game." But he was the man last night, and he not that he needs any more accolades, but. In front of the reigning two-time MVP, SGA, it was showtime. And yet, Oklahoma City still had chances to win that game last night.
Still did, yeah. Like this is one of those things. I think it's going to be a long series. I think it is going to go back and forth, and they're going to exchange punches. But yeah, to your point about Wembanyama and that shot of him. One of the great things about him is he is a showman. Like he is a guy who is willing to engage and embrace the moment and talk about it and really be transparent with his ambition and his feelings about things. He's not vanilla. He does not try to be boring with it. He really does kind of play to the moment in a very, very cool way. And so not only is he a great player, but he's super entertaining as well. And I think that's going to carry him a long way.
Our guy, Chet Holmgren, played his high school ball here, of course, before going to Gonzaga, is going to be in the spotlight for all the right and maybe all the wrong reasons. He did not have a great game last night. He only had 8 points. He did block one of Wemby's shots at kind of near the end, but man, he's going to have his work cut out from a lot of pressure on Chet because he's the man in the middle. He's got to be the last man standing before Wemby gets to the basket. Not that you can stop someone who's 7'4" and as athletic as Wemby is.
Yeah, no, it's going to be a tough series for him, or a challenging series, I would say, because the other part about that is that Wembanyama clearly looks at Chet as a rival and as someone that he wants to dominate. And so when you are in his crosshairs, you better be ready. And I do think that, you don't expect Chet to lock Wemby up to just make it really, really, difficult on him defensively because he's so good that way. But I do think where Chet can put more of his imprint on this series is being more aggressive offensively. He did not have, a lot of involvement in that kind of, just in the overall offensive game plan. So we'll see what happens, with him going forward. But I just do think that you are going to see Chet be a big part of the offense going forward if the Thunder are going to make some adjustments here going forward.
And San Antonio played without arguably their veteran guard Fox last night. Aaron Fox didn't even play. I think he's scheduled to play in game 2, but they're going to get stronger. So here's my next question as we turn the page a little bit. If you're GM Tim Connolly of the Wolves, or Alex Rodriguez, or Mark Laurie, and you're just, not that you needed any more video evidence, but you're watching that game last night, and you're trying to make some seismic moves maybe with the Timberwolves this year, does that conversation start with, how in the hell are we ever going to beat this guy or even be in the neighborhood of Victor and then all this young speed that they have on that team. And how can we possibly counter it other than trading for, Giannis? I mean, that's just a step. I mean, it just seems like, holy hell, there's a lot to think about when he's 22 and all those guys, the nucleus of that team, and getting to say nothing of OKC, they got two Goliaths. Unless they get transferred to the Eastern Conference, good luck. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I mean, that there is that feeling, sure, Rosie. I mean, I'm one of those people who was not overly doom and gloom about the Wolves' loss to the Spurs. I mean, they went 6 games. They had,
I know. How did they beat him twice? Well, I know once he got thrown out,
but yeah, Ant was hurt. Dante was out.
Right.
Io was slowed down. Like, they were not playing with their full complement. And, yes, they got blown out several times in that series, but yeah, you walk out of that series and you say, Oklahoma City's not going anywhere. San Antonio's not going anywhere. So how do you close the gap? And I do think that there will be real kind of efforts by Tim Connolly to change up the roster, to give Anthony Edwards a different look. We'll see if it would be a better look. But, a lot of times in these kind of series and in these seasons, they are so long, so many different things can happen that you just want to have a team that is in the running, that is in the mix. And then injury luck goes your way, or, who knows? What if the Spurs win this year and then they have a couple of guys that kind of get big heads and and they don't handle the success well, or things of that nature. And so
that happens.
I don't think there's any illusion that there is 1 or 2 moves that they can make that would immediately make them a favorite in the West right now. But I do think that they say, hey, if we can just keep getting at bats, just stay in the fight, with Anthony Edwards going into his prime, with Jaden McDaniels, maybe you have a nucleus that can still at least be competitive and contend with them.
Do you think management is more apt to look for more help at that, the point guard position to take some pressure off of Ant in that position, whether it be a veteran, the Kyrie Irvings of the world, or some other younger player, or try to hit the jackpot in their own mind with going to get Giannis as they try to retool this roster that no doubt is going to be shaken up again. But that's Tim Connolly's way. He did it with the Gobert situation. He's done it other times as well.
Yeah, I think that when you look at it, I do think that the kind of pathway forward here is looking at that front court trio of Julius Randle, Naz Reid, Rudy Gobert, and reconfiguring it some way, somehow, so that you maybe have a little more help in the backcourt, and then you lighten up the front court and open up some room for Johan Berenger to play next year. And so
that was my next question. Yep.
I think that they will absolutely look at Giannis and see if there's any deal to be done. Those are such difficult trades to pull off with, a guy making that much money, with the relative lack of draft capital that the Wolves have to throw into the mix. And so they will look at that for sure. But I think the more realistic scenario is probably, you move Randall or you move Rudy, and then you bring in a guard like Kyrie Irving, a Jalen Suggs, a Drew Holiday, someone like that that can play alongside Anthony Edwards in the backcourt and take some of that pressure off of him. I don't think, Rosie, that there are a lot of true point guards out there. A lot of Wolves fans want, hey, get Ant a true point guard. Well, there's no more Mike Conleys. There's no more Chris Pauls. That's just not in vogue in the league right now. But if you can get a combo guard who can really handle the ball and help initiate, I do think that that's an avenue that they'll look at closely.
What's the internal observations about Berenger? You mentioned him young. Was he 19 still? I don't know. Years old. I mean, another young French center who's got the height, got some skills. We've seen it, at times, especially in summer league, didn't get a chance to play all that much other than garbage time. But is there optimism about his growth and development to be a force in the NBA?
Yeah, they think really highly of Berenger. I mean, when you watch him in practice, he is really big, but he has great feet and great hands, and he's got a lot of just kind of agility and athleticism that is there for him. Now he is raw. Like, he needs time to just develop and figure out how to play this game. But when you talk to coaches, like their eyes light up when they think about like the long-term potential that Berenger has as a guy who can not only help you defensively, but also can be someone who can get involved offensively, make plays, catch the ball around the basket, dunk, doing all those things. Rudy Gobert's an amazing player, and he's been an incredible help to this team. One of his weaknesses is he's not very dexterous around the basket. He drops the ball a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Berenger is just much more polished as an athlete on that end of the court. And so I think that there is, a real optimism within the team that they've got a very good player who within the next couple of years will develop into an absolute starting caliber, big time, force on that end of the court and a natural shot blocker and rebounder on the defensive side. So they think very, very highly of Johan Berenger.
Oh, Johnny Krawczynski, you were there for the exit interviews of the Timberwolves after their defeat by the San Antonio Spurs. Naz Reid, among others, had something interesting to say, talking, I think, about the moodiness of the roster or the internally what was going on. How did you interpret his statement? I wasn't there, but I read about it and I saw the clip. As far as going into deeper meaning, was he singling out someone in particular, or just a general theme of what had happened? You've been around this team, obviously, and we're around this team all year long.
Yeah, I think that it really was speaking to an overall sort of vibe in the locker room. Of course, Julius Randle is the one everyone looks at as the guy who kind of rides the wave emotionally, and that's absolutely true. Like, he goes up and down, but it was a locker room, Rosie, that had a bunch of those guys that could be up and down depending on the day, depending on the performance and how things were going. Naz is on that list. Jaden McDaniels is on the list. Rudy Gobert is on the list. Dante DiVincenzo. Like, a lot of these guys kind of internalize their own struggle, and then that can kind of seep out into just their overall attitude within the team. Now, it definitely was not a team that did not like each other or didn't get along or was like backbiting and infighting. There wasn't that, but you could just sense that when things were not going well, it was a heaviness in the air of guys that were trying to get their ways out of their own struggles, but also maybe lamenting that they weren't getting enough shots or they weren't getting the right opportunities. And so that's what made the Denver series so satisfying and fulfilling, Rosie, is that all of that was set aside. Like, they did not have any of that kind of attitude in that series because they were all bonded against a common opponent that they did not like. And they played a very selfless brand of basketball, and it worked out great. But by and large, for most of the regular season, maybe even for a little bit of that Spurs series, like, you just saw guys that would just kind of be up and down, and it wasn't just Randall. It was all over the map there, and so you could feel it kind of permeate the locker room.
How did you read the fact that Julius did not take part in the exit interview process? A lot of people are obviously drawing their own conclusions, and he feels like he's got one foot out the door, and he realized it, doesn't want to talk about his performance, especially in the last couple games against the Spurs. I saw you at the game, Friday night. I just like, man, what's going on with these guys? Yeah. I looked over at the bench. I went, they've checked out. I mean, after the first few minutes, they knew that game and that series was over.
Yeah, I think with Julius, one thing I'll give him credit for is, generally speaking, through the last 2 years, whether things were going right or wrong, he was there to answer questions from the media, and he was a stand-up guy that way. I do think this was one of those cases where he was kind of down in that sunken place and didn't want to talk and didn't want to go over it. He's certainly catching a whole lot of scrutiny, on the internet, on ESPN, and a lot of fingers are pointing at him. So he probably feels backed into a corner a little bit. He did not play well at all in that series. And so I just think that, I think that he probably looks at it as, well, everyone says I'm going to get traded anyway. So why do I have to even go through kind of this whole process. And so I took it as Randall wasn't happy. He didn't want to get into all of the autopsy of what went right and what went wrong. And he probably, much like around the February trade deadline when his name was coming up in the honest rumors, he probably is thinking to himself that he won't be back. Now, I don't think that's a guarantee, but I think that he's in his feelings a little bit right now, and he's trying to, navigate that, and probably doesn't want to say something that he will end up regretting later.
Let's take a quick break and hear from our wonderful sponsors and come back and kind of finish things up with Johnny Athletic, Johnny Krawczynski, right here on Rosen Sports Monday. Hey, Rosie here for Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. As I have told you, I recently purchased a new Lexus RX, and it is fantastic. The best car I've ever driven. Lots of room for a tall guy like me, and it just drives like a dream. Charlie Swanson and his staff have been so good to me, and I can't say enough about the wonderful treatment I've received from the service department to the people at the front desk. They're all very welcoming. We purchased an all-gas model, but keep in mind it also comes in a hybrid and a plug-in hybrid. And I think my wife is going to do an NX Lexus this spring. So go to Lexus of Wayzata or Lexus of Maplewood and come and see what they have that works for you.
Here is where it all starts. Here's where pages are turned and new legends are written. Here's where kids become lifelong fans and lifelong fans become kids. Here's where sunsets last longer, happy hour tastes better, and summer hits its stride. And when all of Twins territory stands together and believes hard enough, well, there's no place like here. Get your tickets at twins.com.
Looking for a pouch that actually stands out? A lot of people I know are reaching for Lucy because it's built for pouch users who want something different. The flavor lasts, the pouch feels great, and it's completely tobacco-free. Lucy pouches come in strengths up to 12 milligrams and have a unique shape that makes them comfortable and easy to use throughout the day. And if you want something even more unique, check out Lucy Breakers. They're nicotine pouches with a hydrating flavor capsule inside. Just crack it with your teeth for an instant burst of flavor that lasts. And that's what makes them different. Every other pouch feels the same, but Lucy Breakers are doing something no one else is, delivering the longest-lasting on-demand flavor in pouches. And now Lucy is available in stores nationwide, so it's easier than ever to find. You can use the store locator at lucy.co/stores or get it delivered fast through apps like DoorDash and GoPuff. Lucy is the only pouch that delivers long-lasting on-demand flavor. Get 20% off your first order when you buy online at lucy.co/Rosen with promo code ROSEN. And if you don't want to wait, check out their store locator to find Lucy near you and grab it today. And here comes the fine print. Lucy products are only for adults of legal age, and every customer is age verified. Warning, this product does contain nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. Welcome back. Johnny Krawczynski, Johnny Athletic, is with us talking more Wolves. A couple other individuals I want to talk about and kind of relating maybe to the head coach and Chris Finch and the job he did. And he'll be back, right? 100%. He's coming back. I mean,
it would shock me if he was going to be fired, Rosie. I think everyone expects him to be back.
Maybe probably because of the injury to Dante DiVincenzo, but TJ Shannon all of a sudden got was starting games and playing a lot and looking explosive, and he had some mistakes along the way, but you could see that the guy's got a world of talent. Yet we barely saw him in real time during the course of the season. Was that a mistake on Chris Finch's part? Was he worried about his defense? How did he go from basically being buried on the bench to having this kind of role out of necessity for the most part, but having an opportunity to shine during the postseason?
Yeah, a lot of it, Rosie, was like, especially in the first couple of months of the season, he had a foot injury that that he was trying to work through. By the time he came back, he tried to play through it, didn't work, went kind of on the shelf for a little while, came back, and it was still bothering him, so he went back on the shelf. And so he kind of sort of got lost in the shuffle, I think, through those portions of the season. And then by the time that he came back and was probably fully healthy, they were kind of scratching and clawing to get any sort of momentum going. And so I don't think that Chris Finch felt comfortable throwing him out there in high leverage moments. And if you want to scrutinize Chris Finch, sometimes he probably gets a little too married to the rotation that he has and doesn't kind of deviate and expand it enough to give some of these young guys a little bit more run. But he was really trying to get a flow and a rhythm with the guys who were locked into the rotation. And it just they were kind of fits and starts for most of the season. So, the good news is by the end, when some of those other injuries came up and the opportunity presented itself, Terrence Shannon Jr. really did, I think, make the most of it. He certainly has some weaknesses. I think he needs to develop a right hand. I think he needs to work on his shot a little bit more. But we saw his role expand and the ball in his hands and the explosiveness getting downhill. And I thought he improved defensively as the playoffs went along as well. So, you can look at him as another guy who going into next season should be factoring into their plans in their rotation because he's young, he's athletic, he's strong. He works incredibly hard, so you figure he will improve this summer as well. And that's definitely a bright spot for what they have going forward.
Is the assumption because of the Achilles tear of Dante DiVincenzo and how late it occurred that he's probably going to miss the entire season? Or maybe, that's probably the way, if you look at the general history of those injuries.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Jason Tatum came back, I think in March of this year when he was, it had the same injury a year, at the same time last year, but you can't really plan on that. I think probably the calculus going into it will be, hey, he's going to miss the entire year. If things go incredibly well, we'll just adjust to it and see how it goes. But certainly a crushing blow, both for Dante DiVincenzo, who was playing terrific basketball, and also for the Wolves now, because now they have like a $12.5 million salary slot that is just eaten up by someone who is not playing. And so it's really difficult kind of in a number of ways. But yes, I think that, you go into it and say, Dante, will see you in 2027. But if things were to happen and he's able to come back late in of next season, then you say, okay, we'll adjust and play with that as it is. But it's a really difficult injury that you have to do the right way.
He was so durable all year. That's the sad part.
Played all 82, and you just saw it was just one of those freak things. There was no contact. He just made one of those negative steps and it blew out, and now he's got a long road ahead of him.
Meanwhile, an appreciation clap for Mike Conley at 38 and what he was able to even do in the postseason. I know he's probably one of your favorite athletes you've covered over the years, and he produced, under what he could still do for this basketball team. I think I watched him out there. I went, man, he could still play this game. He's got the savvy, he's got the shot, he's got an understanding. Obviously, you're not going to play him 40 minutes, but he sounds like he wants to play one more year.
Yeah, it was really cool to hear it. I mean, a lot of times athletes in his situation, this, Rosie, will be like, well, yeah, I got to talk to my family and all, we'll take some time to think about things. But you could tell by the end of the season that Mike Conley was really feeling good about the way he was playing, and he should have. Like, he was knocking down open shots. He was playing well defensively. He was giving the Wolves everything that they could ask for from him. And so for him to finish the season the way that he did, and just declare on his exit interview that, yeah, I'm coming back next year, that just shows that he is going into this summer with a great mindset. And, I think the Timberwolves do want him back. He's a free agent. He will kind of weigh a bunch of things when looking at his options, but I would be not surprised, but I am planning on Mike Conley being here next year in a backup role and being a part of it. Chris Finch loves him. Everyone in the locker room loves him. So it makes a lot of sense for Mike Conley to come back here.
Let's turn the page. I know you cover the Vikings as well, and never a dull moment with them. Their GM search continues. I would expect sometime probably around Memorial Day. That's this weekend, or soon thereafter. They'll name a general manager with their search firm. If they're conducting all these interviews, like we're talking right now, not in person, but your thoughts on that, because and what kind of person you think the Vikings should be looking at, balancing the power structure that starting with KOC and everyone else in the organization. Rob Brzezinski, who still, I think, apparently wants the job. I doubt if he'll get it, and that's not a negative on Rob. Mm-hmm. That's just a fact of life with the search firm.
Yeah, it feels like when you see the names that have been introduced to the proceedings and kind of everything that's going forward, I really like, Rosie, a scenario where Rob is sort of the overseer of the football operations, but then you hire one of these up-and-coming, assistant GMs to be your personnel guy, to run the draft, to do the scouting, and then you use Rob as kind of a connector. He's a great communicator. He has great relationships all over the building. I do think that culture in the front office needs a little repair, needs to kind of get everybody brought together and, kind of rowing the boat in the same direction. And so I think Rob is the kind of guy who is egoless, is just respected throughout. And so if you could somehow get that kind of an arrangement where you do have Rob that is kind of like the connector, and then you have, whoever you hire of that list of guys who have interviewed as the main personnel and football operations guy. And then he connects, with business leadership, with KOC, with everyone else. That might be the best case scenario coming out of here, given how late this is all transpiring.
Yeah, it's an interesting scenario, and power is power, and KOC certainly has more than his share of just being a head coach on this football team, and his words, his say, his feelings. But you have to have an organization that, you're right, is in sync and understanding that you're all rowing together. That's easier said than done, because you have to have a strong organization. Look what Seattle's done to win championships. I've always been a big believer in all of that, and I feel that's the same right now. As far as the football side of it goes, I know that the Vikings announced that the Baltimore Ravens will be coming to town to have their 2-day scrimmage, you want to call it that, like they did last year with New England, before they play the exhibition game here. Is this going to be the best chance for J.J. McCarthy to kind of show his wares? I'm trying to understand when they say it's going to be a true competition for the quarterback job with Kyler Murray and J.J. McCarthy, how the coaching staff and KOC is going to figure out how is J.J. McCarthy progressing right now? What are we seeing in practice? Because I can't believe he's going to play very much in the preseason, certainly not with the frontline players. So, how do you gauge all that?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting way for them to go about it. I do think, Rosie, that they're kind of going into this with this narrative of a true competition for kind of both parties, because you want J.J. McCarthy to feel like engaged and not get lost in the shuffle and not get demoralized by bringing someone in. But I also think, from what you hear about Kyler Murray and, his motivations and things like that, I think you have to keep a fire under his butt as well. Like, hey, if you don't come in with the right approach, with the right commitment, we have a 10th overall pick that we will go to if you're not putting the work in that you need to do. And so I really am going to be interested to see like how Kevin O'Connell kind of manages the reps in training camp and mini camps and how this thing develops, because it sure does seem like, Kyler is the number one and JJ is the number two. But if you really want to give both of them a chance, they both need chances with throwing the ball to Justin Jefferson and Juwan Jennings and Jordan Addison. And so I think we'll find out fairly early in the training camp kind of process of like, okay, is this a genuine competition, or are you just kind of speaking out of both sides of your mouth, and it's clear that Kyler's number one and JJ is number two? But it's going to take some time, and everyone's going to be watching that really, really closely.
It does feel to me, and I know hindsight's 20/20, as they say, that to me, given JJ McCarthy's background, what he did at Michigan or didn't do in a true passing situation scheme, that this year should have been the starting point, the kickoff point for JJ McCarthy, much the way what Jordan Love kind of went through with Green Bay, that he wasn't ready for prime time. And the Vikings, as it turned out after the injury filled the year, kind of rushed him back. Here, you're our guy. You're our number one guy. And we all know what happened. And now it seems like, well, he's probably mentally, physically a lot more ready for what he's about to get into, yet he's got the competition, and he may very well not play very much if Murray is able to get the job done for the Vikings. And don't forget, they still got Carson Wentz on this team. I know people can laugh at that and go, well, he played pretty well under the circumstances, getting his ass kicked every week physically. What are your thoughts about that with JJ and looking at the whole quarterback arc in the NFL in particular? What's going on with him?
Yeah, I mean, I think we learned last year that he was not ready for all of it. And I don't know that Kevin O'Connell was ready for J.J. McCarthy either. I mean, you know, I thought that towards the end of the season, when McCarthy had a little bit of success, part of it was that he was more comfortable, but part of it is that Kevin O'Connell changed the way that he was calling the offense. I think that there was an unreasonable expectation put on J.J. McCarthy that he was going to be ready to do the whole Kevin O'Connell complex offensive scheme right from the jump. And it was a little bit too much for him. And so it would have been best if he had one more year just to watch, learn, figure things out. And then this was year one for him as a starter coming into this next season. So as you look at what he can do going forward, I do think that now there is a greater understanding between head coach and quarterback about what each other does well and how to work together. And I don't think they were working together very well at the start of last season. And so I think there's a better chance that if he does get another opportunity, that it goes better. I like his arm strength. I mean, you talk to players and they love J.J. McCarthy. They want to play for him. Like, he's a good
Brian
leader.
O'Neill said great things about him.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, he has a lot of those intangibles too. Now, he has to stay healthy and he has to make better decisions, but that's a lot of time just a really young quarterback who hasn't played a ton of football in his life. He didn't play a lot at Michigan before he came out. And so they should have viewed him as a longer term developmental project, I think, than they did. And so we are all of a sudden now getting into unwittingly that longer term kind of approach. And so we'll see how it goes, but I have not given up on J.J. McCarthy being a good starting quarterback in this league. I just think that he needs more time, more tutelage, and a little bit more care about kind of how you construct an offense around him to give him the best chance to succeed.
Well, as we know, the Vikings are never out of season, and Johnny Athletic was never out of season either. He'll be back out there, I'm sure, with mini camps coming at the NFL. Stands for not for long. That means not for long out of the news cycle.
That's right.
They're constantly in it. And the Vikings, of course, are always number one in this community. Johnny, thank you so much for spending some time with me this morning. Really appreciate it.
You got it, Rosie. Thanks, man.
All right, thank you. And you've been listening to Rosen's Sports Monday here on a Tuesday.